Welcome back, Coach Friends, and thank you for joining me on day 3 of Coaching Simplified, Core Competencies in Action for International Coaching Week. I am Coach Pam, your mentor coach and the creator and founder of Coaching Simplified. And today we are walking through, or I should say this week, we are walking through all 8 core competencies through the lens of application. And so you will see me in full transparency. I have notes to keep me on track here. So you may see me looking down and just pulling something so that I can bring it to you here tonight. And so tonight's going to be a big one this evening, I should say, or today. We're diving into 2 competencies, and these competencies that we will be talking about today is how you show up in the moment in the coaching session. All right. And so I've already spoken on Monday. I talked about core competency 1 and 2, and that is demonstrates ethical practices, and competency 2 around embodies coaching mindset. Yesterday, I talked about competency 3, establish and maintains agreement. And I also talked about competency 4, cultivate trust and safety. And so tonight, we're going for 5 and 6. So competency 5 is maintains presence, and competency 6 is listens actively. And these are often underestimated, but they are some of the strongest indicators, when you think about the PCC level coaching. And so let's unpack and really dig deep into these particular competencies today. And so let's go ahead. I'm going to use some of my little toys I have over here. So you might hear me do the drum roll. Awesome. So you might hear me, see me do some of those tonight. But let me go ahead and put up the caption so that you know where we are. So we are talking about core competency, ICF Core Competency number 5, maintains presence. And so presence is the your ability to stay connected, to really stay grounded and unattached, even when it's messy in a coaching session. And so this particular competency is all about presence. It's being fully there. Yes, you're there physically, but are you there mentally? Are you there emotionally? And are you there energetically for the client? Being mentally there. Are you really tuned into what the client is saying? Or are you thinking about what you're doing after the coaching session is done? Right. So being fully present with the client. You also want to let go of performing. Being a coach is not about performance, but it is about being there in the moment with your client. So letting go of the need to perform or even to be the expert in the room. You don't have to be the one that knows it all. Can you be flexible and vulnerable as a coach to be present with your client and allow your client to lead? Trust that your client knows where they want to go with your support. And that's where maintaining the presence comes in into play when you are there in the trenches with your client. It is adjusting in the moment instead of sticking to a plan. Are you coming to your coaching sessions flexible? Are you coming to your coaching sessions ready to adjust and meet your client where they are? And go along for the ride with your client. You don't have to have a specific schedule or structure in a sense, but ensure that you are maintaining your presence, that you are holding space for your client to reflect, that you're not taking over the conversation, that you are allowing your client to do all the talking. you're allowing your client to own that time that they have with you. And again, as I mentioned about holding space, holding space for those emotions that may come forth, acknowledging those emotions or acknowledging when you see your client shifting. Are you taking notice of those things? And really, when you think about this particular marker, and I have my PCC markers here that I like to use when I am mentor coaching. One is when you think of 5.1, the coach acts in response to the whole person. You can associate that one with Core Competency 3.4, which is the coach partners with the client to define what the client wants to, or what they believe they need to address to achieve the goal that they want to accomplish in the session. And so that means that you are coaching the person, not the problem. You're coaching the whole person, thinking holistically about the person. 5.2 is another marker when I am mentor coaching. The coach acts in response to what the client wants to accomplish throughout the session. So are you referencing what the client wants to focus on in the session, or what the client wants to accomplish and walk away? So that's the what. So that's the 3.1. You can associate that one with 3.1, which is the coach partners with the client to identify what the client wants to accomplish, in the session. And so when you are, acting in response of that, perhaps the client may lose track, right? And so are you maybe acknowledging or maybe helping the client, bringing the client back by connecting whatever their response was, or whatever they're sharing in the moment, that you are connecting it back to the what. Also, you can utilize what the client is saying to you in your session to connect it back to the who. All right. So that's 5.1 and 5.2 when we talk about maintain presence. 5.3 is that the coach partners with the client. You will notice that a lot of the core competencies or the PCC markers that, and I specifically use the PCC markers when mentor coaching, and when I'm coaching others, around partnering. So are you partnering with the client by supporting? You're supporting a client to choose what happens in the session. So you may, one way that might be is if perhaps you've been meeting with this client over a period of time. And so you may start your session out by asking the client what progress have they made on their goals. And they may say, they've made some progress, they've done some of the actions, and you may ask, what are they still challenged with? And they may share some things that they may be struggling with, or some things that maybe they didn't do. And so I sometimes use that opportunity to say, would you, and again, giving them the option to choose, would you like to, dig into the area that's challenging you as it relates to your goals? Or would there be another topic you would prefer to dig into for our session today? And so again, I'm giving the client the option to choose the direction and where they want to go within the scope of time that we have together. So that's 5.3. 5.4, when you think about maintains presence, is the coach demonstrates curiosity to learn more about the client. So as your client is sharing information, whether they have shared information at the top of the hour or at the top of the time that you started engaging in your coaching session, or perhaps they've shared, something in the moment, it's utilizing that information to learn more about the client. So the curiosity is not so much for you as the coach, but it's more so about what else can you learn about the client that's going to help them get to what it is they want to accomplish, right? So you're giving the client an opportunity to explore and to reflect a little bit more. Perhaps you're helping the client to dig into their learnings. What are they learning about themselves, in this moment of time? And so that's a way, when you think about 5.4, how to, that the coach demonstrates curiosity. So that is demonstrating curiosity. So I am looking for those things, or listening for to see if that's demonstrated within a coaching session or within a recording that I am listening to when I am mentor coaching. And the last thing, as it relates to maintains presence, is the coach allows for silence, pause, and or reflection. So silence, pause, or reflection. You will be surprised at how powerful it is in the moment when you allow space in between the engagement that you and your client is having. It doesn't necessarily mean that when a client stops talking that you automatically jump into the next question. It's okay to give a little bit of space, because the client may have more to say. So you allot a few moments for that. And it could allow for you as the coach to determine which way are you looking to go? What is it that the client said that you are perhaps looking to get more information about? And so it could perhaps maybe help you formulate your thought. So it's okay to use silence and pause, and allowing your clients to reflect. So, though that's competency 5, maintain presence. And so um, instead of thinking, what should I ask next, right? You may just ask the client, what's happening in this moment, right, for them. Or that may be something you're asking yourself as the coach. So instead of asking yourself, what should I ask next, based on, where the client ended, perhaps you're just asking yourself, what's happening in this moment? Is there something that I can acknowledge the client for? Did the client say something powerful? Or did they say something that really resonated with where it is what they're looking to accomplish? Did they provide some insight, right? That you can acknowledge them for. So you may ask the client what's coming up for them right now, what's shifting as you say that out loud. So if the client is saying some things and it may look like things are turning, you may ask them what's shifting for them as they hear themselves say the things that they're saying. What's coming up for you now? Where is that feeling in your body if things are shifting or changing? And just, even as a coach, you can pause and let the client lead, because the client may have more to say. So allowing that space and allowing the pause and the reflection is very powerful in coaching. And so what I would say here's something for you to practice as we think about maintain presence, is how do you prepare for your sessions? So that goes back into embodying the coaching mindset too. And how do you prepare for your sessions as a coach? Are you back to back and you just turn on your camera and you're just ready to go? Or do you take a moment? Do you pause? Do you reflect? Do you have a moment of silence for yourself so that you are in the right frame of mind, that you are prepared to meet your client where they are and to support your client during the coaching session that you are about to engage in? So I would challenge you, before every session, take a pause, Maybe take 3 breaths, relax, maybe review some notes if you had some notes from the session, and just get yourself mentally prepared. Now, if taking deep breaths don't work for you, maybe it's lighting a candle, maybe it's turning on a little bit of music just to allow yourself a moment. Maybe it's just being still. But whatever it is for you, you define what works best for you and then put that into practice. And then maybe set an intention for yourself of how you want to show up during the session. I trust the process. I do not need to steer. I don't need to be in control here. I don't need to follow a script. I need to stay in the moment with my client. So try that. Try that for yourself, setting an intention the next time you're getting ready to go to a coaching session or prepare for a coaching session. Prepare and get yourself mentally prepared, physically prepared, emotionally prepared to have that conversation with your client. All right, so let's shift here. Let's see, where do I want to go now? I think I want to do a little fun here. Gong. Let's see, where am I? Here I am. And now let's go ahead and look and start talking about competency 6, listens actively. So great coaches listen beyond words. Oftentimes when I am training new coaches to be certified life coaches, I always say to them that listening is not just audible. Like, you have to go beyond the things that you hear, right? But you listen also to emotions and energy and what's unsaid. What are they not saying? A lot of that is going to be part of also maintaining presence, but also how are you listening? Because listening is beyond just the words. It's their body language. It's speaking, even when they are not audibly speaking. So what are they saying? What are they not saying? And so this competency, when you think about listens actively, it's hearing not just what the client say, but how they say it. You may have heard the phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. That may cause you to say, what was that about? It's also about picking up on shifts and energy changes with the client, their mood, the pace in which they're speaking. Were they excited when they first started talking? And did the tone of their voice change? Did their mood change? Is there an emotion now stirring up? So it's really kind of reading the room when you think about listens actively. It's reflecting back what matters most. So it's not just repeating the words that you hear your client saying, but it's listening to what they're saying and it's sifting through those words or phrases or just what you're hearing them say. Are there any key words that are standing out to you? Are there any words that they may have said more than once that you've picked up on? Does it sound like they're rambling? And there's some key things in there that you may be listening to that you can maybe ask a question about or ask them, what does that mean? So it's not just about, it's reflecting back what's important, right? What's most important. So it's not just about trying to verbatim give back to the client what they said, right? But it's saying back to them what mattered most based on what you were hearing, based on what you saw, how they were moving through the conversation, how they were moving through what they were sharing, and you giving it back to them to let them listen to it from a different lens, your lens, what you picked up, and you're sharing that with them. And so now they may be looking at it a little bit differently, right? It's also asking questions based on client meaning, not just out of curiosity. So we talked about in Competency 5, where it says coach demonstrates curiosity, right? So that curiosity is more about the clients, not so much about you. Maybe it sparked something in you, what the client said, that drew some curiosity to learn a little bit more about the client, right? And so when you're asking questions based on the client's meaning of it, right? So that it's helping them to understand the perspective of what they're saying. And you asking with that level of curiosity, more so for their benefit though, right? To help them to see their conversation, whatever they shared, from a different lens. That makes sense when you think about listens actively. So, I use the PCC markers when it comes to mentor coaching. And so there are 6 of them when you are listening actively during a coaching session. So those 6 are that the coach questions and coaches' questions and observations are customized. So that's 6.1. What I'm often looking for and what I'm listening for in a coaching recording that I am reviewing, as I'm mentoring a coach, is, are you asking questions, or are your questions specific to what the client provided, based on the information that the client provided? Are you asking your questions in relation to that? Right? So you're customizing, you're taking a question and you're specifically asking it in alignment to what the client perhaps may have shared. Right? And so that is 6.1, that you are using what you have learned as the coach, what you've learned about the client or the client situation. So based on what the client has shared, you may have learned something about the client that you can now create a question to ask about it. So that's customized. 6.2 is that the coach inquires about or explores client's words. So yes, the client is giving you a lot of information and you're sifting through that information to pull out key things that the client is saying, things that may be meaningful to the client. And you may ask it in a question. The client may use the word fear a lot. And it might say, I've noticed that you use the word fear quite a bit during your, as you were sharing about XYZ. What does fear mean to you in relation to, again, whatever the client was sharing? So 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4 are all related to inquire about or explores the client word. To 6.2, 6.3 inquires about or explores the client's emotions. So are there some emotions coming up or stirring up for the clients? And 6.4 is that you are exploring the energy shifts. Maybe the client did a laugh and it's like, oh, that made you laugh. What made that funny to you? What made you laugh after saying that? Right? So just kind of reiterating and bringing that up and exploring it to see if there is something behind it. All right. 6.5 is the coach inquires about or explores how the client currently perceives themselves or the world. How does the client, what did the client think of themselves as it relates to this situation? What is the situation telling the client about themselves, right? And so it's inquiring about how they perceive themselves. How do you see yourself? What does this mean for you? If you were to take on a new project, how would that impact you? Right? So really thinking, the client thinking, how does that relate to themselves? 6.6, the coach allows the client to complete speaking without interrupting, unless there is a stated coaching purpose to do so. And so this one, 6.6 is, are you, and when I'm mentor coaching, are you allowing the client to have their moment? Now, oftentimes, you might hear, yeah, that's great. Right? So having those in between as the client is speaking, would you feel like you are allowing the client an opportunity to have their say without any form of interruption? Now, if you're on video, you can nod in agreement. You can lean in to let the client know that you're listening, right? Another way you can let the client know that you're listening is once they're done, you can take some of the things that they've shared, right? You can give back an observation of what you've heard. You can give back a question based on what they shared, utilizing some of the phrases or words, and then formulating it in a question, giving a little bit of dialogue there. Now, there may be a moment to interrupt if the client is going on a tangent. They're kind of going on and on and on, and they've gotten off track. There may be a moment to, when you have a moment to get in, it may be, would it be okay if I pause you here and reflect back to what you were to be focusing on? So going back to and relating back to, what is it that you agreed upon at the beginning of the call that you were going to be accomplishing and focusing on? So it may be, would it be okay for me to pause you here? Now, you shared XYZ. How does that relate to, again, XYZ, right? So whatever it is that they were wanting to accomplish, you may want to kind of tie back to that so that it helps to get you back on track. So there are ways to interrupt if it causes for that. In most cases, allowing the client to just have that space. But that means for you to, going back to maintain presence, right? It's going to mean for you to ensure that you are really there, that you're meeting the client where they are, you are listening, you're tuned in, you're capturing some insights there so that when they are finished, you can kind of give a reflection, you can give an observation that will help you to ask another question and engage the client into another question. And the last thing as it relates to 6.7, listens actively, is the coach reflects or summarizes what the client communicated to ensure the client's clarity and understanding. So that is just, oftentimes if you give an observation or a reflection, sometimes I may, say, what else would you add to that? How does that sit with you? Here is what I heard you say. Would it be okay if I offer an observation here? How does that sit with you? Things of that nature. Again, you want your questions to be, and maybe perhaps I do another video on questions, powerful questions, open-ended questions, right? Because you want your questions to be open-ended, because you want to give the client an opportunity to explore and reflect, to have space to change their perspective, to really think about what's happening in that moment. And so when you are reflecting back as it relates to 6.7, then you're summarizing or you are reflecting to ensure that you're understanding one, and given again the partnering and collaborating with the client to see if there's anything else that they would add. So yeah, and so when you think about this particular competency or this marker, and I went through all 7 of the markers. Again, I use the PCC markers when doing when I am mentor coaching other coaches, and so then it really helps to go through each of them to really understand, what does this mean, right? And so that's it, so what it sounds like. So let me quickly do that. The client may say, I keep putting off decisions. And you, as the coach, could say, I noticed your energy dropped when you said that. What's underneath the delay? What's causing you to feel or keep putting off decisions? All right, that's one way. Or, you said that, and maybe this, and here is where, if you insert a word that maybe the client didn't say, then, you can confirm with the client. So it could look like, you said this feels heavy. What's the weight connected to that? Would you use heavy, or would you use another word? Right. So again, that takes us back to letting the client choose what direction. So that would be 5.3. So that goes back to maintain presence. And that takes me to another point. Takes to another point for you to consider and think about when you insert something, because maybe the client says something and you have a different thought about it, right? Or another word may come up for you. If you are inserting something that the client did not say, ask permission if that word could be used, or would the client use something else? Because now you're giving the client the option to choose what word or where do they want to go with it. Okay, so I hope that made sense. So I'll say this lastly as I begin to wrap this up. Listening is about client-centered awareness. It is helping your client to be aware of what they're saying. And you as the coach is helping to kind of guide or facilitate that through the power of questions, open-ended questions, not just any questions, open-ended questions. Open-ended questions gives the client an opportunity to explore, to reflect, to really add some insights to the conversation. The client should be owning the coaching session. The client should be doing all the talking, right? That's a whole nother topic when you talk about how much should the coach be talking in the session. And so it's not coach driven. We all know that your coaching session should be client centered, right? And so, try this after your next coaching session. I want you to get a pen, paper, write these down, and try these after your next coaching session. What did I really hear from the client today? What did I really hear? Okay. What emotion or value was present, even if it was unspoken? So what observations did you have about your client? And did I reflect what mattered to the client, or what was simply spoken? Did I just give the client some words just based on what they said? Or did I really reflect back to the client what really mattered? That's where that sifting is going to come in. listening for those key words or phrases that the client is saying, where it sounds like it may have some value or power there. That can be, that can be the make or break of the session. How clear can you hear? Remember, hearing is beyond the words. So what's unspoken? What's not said? What is the client not saying? Are you sensing? Have you ever been in a coaching session and you're having a conversation with your client and you're sensing like something? I've done that, and I've said, what's the elephant in the room? Because something is, you're saying this and I'm seeing that. What's happening here? That can definitely help you build trust, cultivate trust and safety with your clients too, right? So, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and close us out for today. I hope that you were able to gain some great insights as it related to our session today. Really help you to start thinking about how you can incorporate the core competencies into your coaching sessions, to really assess and really think about what they look like to you. And so in closing, we explored the how of coaching, in a sense of how to stay grounded when a client gets emotional. We didn't specifically talk about when clients get emotional. That's like a whole nother episode, but just at least how to stay grounded within a coaching session, and how to listen beyond words. Are there values that the client may be saying or demonstrating? Are there any patterns that you've noticed that there may be something going on? So it's not just the content, but it's the client. Remember, the whole person. Coaching the who, the person. All right. And there are muscles. These are the muscles. When you think about maintain presence and listens actively, they are the muscle of mature coaching, and how you are showing up as a coach, and how well are you able to engage in that conversation with your with your client, by maintaining your presence, being there, meeting them where they are, allowing the client to choose a direction, allowing time for space and reflection, right? And then listening beyond the words. And if you're on the path to PCC, perhaps you're working on your ACC. You're working on it for the first time, or maybe you are doing it as a renewal, or working towards PCC, and you want to deepen your skills. I can help you as a mentor coach. I've helped several people internationally, globally, in helping them to build upon their already, great coaching skills. Just because you're doing mentor coaching doesn't mean that you're doing something bad. Absolutely not. But it is definitely a way to deepen your learnings, to deepen your knowledge, to challenge yourself, to expand yourself as a coach, because you're constantly learning. There's ongoing learning. It doesn't stop once you got your credential. It doesn't stop when you've done your coach training. You're constantly learning as a coach. And so mentor coaching can definitely help you navigate that. And I am here to support you in those endeavors. So you can reach out to me. My website is Pam D. Reaves, REAV as in Victor, ES.com. You can go there and schedule time. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Pam Reaves, REAV as in Victor, ES. You can find me there on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. Reach out and let's have a coffee chat, and let's see how we can work together. And so with that, as we've talked about these transformational competencies today, until next time. So tomorrow I will be talking about, Competency 7, which is evokes awareness, and competency 8 facilitates client growth. And so we'll wrap up the week with those 2 competencies on tomorrow. So stay tuned. And so until then, keep it simple, keep it curious, and stay present. And we will talk next time. Take care.